No, how about sound now? I need it. Where's the sound bar? The sound. Configuration. There we go. I see my little audio output now. Okay, I think we're good. Sorry about that. Good thing we caught that early before I started jibber jabbering too much. Well, let's restart. How's everyone doing today? I know we got a lot of really good stuff. Speak up. Say something. Say something. Something. Okay. Let me switch the outputs. I think we're good now. Okay. Excellent. Sorry about that, everybody. See a lot of Tom, Ben, Doug, Steven, Danny Grizzles in the house, Matthias, David. Man, lots of no names. Thank you, everybody, very much for coming. I've been working really hard. Well, I've been working hard for a lot of months, but I thought this was going to be an easy week. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, you know, last week, I don't remember if it was Thursday or Friday. I don't recall when it was, but there was a user that posted. I don't know. I think it was Jonathan Spencer. I don't know if you're here, John. Sorry to call you out, but yeah, he posted on the community. He bought Total CMS 3 and started working on it. And by the end of the day, whichever day it was, he was like, I don't think this is for me. It's, you know, and so yeah, it spurred me to, okay, let me rethink about Total CMS 3 and what the experience is like from a completely new user, right? Because, you know, I've been working on it for so long and so hard that a lot of the beta and subsequent videos, I kind of take for granted that maybe you've already been using it and watched everything in the past that's already been done, right? And that's obviously not the case for everybody. We need to make sure that, you know, we have a little reset every now and then. And yeah, it took a reset. But this isn't just going to be about a tutorial. I really looked at the product and said, okay, if I'm a new user, how can I work with this product, right? How can I learn? And so I implemented a few really amazing features that I think are going to make using Total CMS 3 even better. Okay. How do you obtain Total CMS 3? There's a link in the community. If someone wants to get it and put it in the chat for Danny, that would be great. It is still in beta. It's not like officially on the website because it is a beta, but it is a pay to play. Okay. So if you'd like to play with it, you can purchase the beta. Okay. And I'll be upfront. There is no discount because you're buying the beta. You're going to buy the license, right? You actually don't get a license yet. Once that's ready, I'm almost to that point. But yeah, you'll get a license that you can then assign to your domain and blah, 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 blah. Okay. But we don't want to go down that path right now. We're talking about what we did new. Okay. So anyway, I evaluated the user flow and came up with a couple really cool features. One feature is going to be called JumpStart. And the other feature is, it's a stack, but it's also built into the CMS, obviously. It's called CMS Grid. It's a new way of building layouts really easily. I think pretty easily. Okay. So we still have the ability to do the really advanced layouts, which is what we've had, but we have a new, much simpler way now. Okay. So pretty cool. Excited about that. So without further ado, let me get my notes up here. So I can show off the new stuff. And we're probably gonna, I don't know, hopefully I won't go in too many tangents, and hopefully I keep things relatively simple today. I'm going to try to at least. Okay. So we're going to be doing all of today in stacks. Currently, I'm using beta 48. I know a lot of you don't have beta 48 yet. There are some fixes in the beta 40s that I worked really hard on getting Total CMS 3 to work really, really well inside stacks, because that's obviously our future, right? So yeah, this new project file that we built, which is another goal that I had, is to build a brand new project file from scratch. You know, the old project file that we had, it was Rapidweaver 8 project file that it worked, but I don't know. I felt like starting clean. Okay, and I think I've done a pretty bang up job. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up this project file. At the end of today, you should have beta 48. Isaiah said he was going to release it to the world yesterday, I believe. I sent him a message this morning. I haven't heard back yet. So, I don't know, by the end of this stream, I might, if you stay on, okay, I'll put a link to the download to beta 48 in the chat. Okay. Now this version of Total CMS you're looking at, I haven't shipped it yet. Because I knew once I did this live stream, I knew I was going to find more bugs and issues and whatnot. So I wanted to kind of do this, and then hopefully this afternoon, depending on what issues I find, either it'll be this afternoon or early tomorrow, I will ship this beta release. Okay. I did finish everything on my to-do list. Well, I have one thing. I have a Total CMS 1 import thing I need to look at, but I don't know if we'll do that for this release or not. So, okay. But anyway, here is our new demo project file. Okay. And so when you download Total CMS 3, you'll get this project file. And whenever I release this update, I'll make sure I put a download directly to this file on that post on the community as well. Okay. Think of this isn't necessary. A lot of my demo projects are like, you know, little sample websites, right? But I'm kind of building this as more of a little tutorial. Okay. So this demo project, it's not 100% complete. There will, as you see, as we go through it, there are some pages that are still a work in progress. Okay. So this isn't complete by any stretch, and I'm sure there'll be more enhancements and, you know, ideas coming from you guys and new features that I add that will make this even better. Okay. But I think it's a really great start. So the homepage here is just a little overview telling you that, yes, this project file is made with Foundation 6, just because it's easier for me. You know, it's great that, you know, there are other themes out there. Total CMS does not require Foundation, but yeah, it's my theme. I like it. And so I built the project file with it. Okay. Plus, there aren't many Stack 6 themes yet. So there we go. Okay, so it does use some, I use Bento Box. I like Bento Box. It's a really nice stack. It's kind of becoming my new container, everybody, just to let you know. It's from my Bento stacks, but the Bento Box in particular, super simple stack. I just kind of like it, how it just organizes things. But anyway, don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Let's just look at this project file really quick. Okay, so if we can just go ahead and preview it. Okay, we don't need to see the stacks library for right now. I added no navigation. I used to have a navigation and I was going to maintain it, but you know what? I mean, you just kind of, let's just go down the list here. We already have navigations built into the app. This project file is really meant to be used within the app to help you learn Total CMS 3. You can publish it if you like, but I don't think so. I think, you know, using this to learn and then building your own site to publish is ultimately going to be better. Okay. Let's look at the content page. So first thing we'll notice is this, actually what I wanted to show you is there's a lot of content actually missing from this. There's no images, there's no galleries. This actually is like the default color. This is a default date, which is now, right? So a lot of this content that we're seeing here, look, there's nothing inside the button. There's hello with exclamation points. There's nothing, right? Here is just the default header. Okay. So a lot of content is missing from this project. And that is the first bit I wanted to tackle. Like here, we go to feeds. What the heck? There's nothing in the feed, right? We go to blog, and there's nothing in the blog. Okay. Blog posts. Well, boom, page is completely broken. Hopefully I didn't actually break that. Hopefully it's just because there's no content. Okay. But as you see, that's the first problem we have. So you have a project file, and I had the previous demo like had the custom collections and a few other things, but it was hard to test and play around with things because like you didn't have the data. So this is why I invented something called JumpStart. Okay. And actually let me go ahead and actually make sure I clear some stuff in here. Later on towards the end, if you want. So Total CMS does store data, okay, inside the CMS or on your file system for preview, okay. And I just want to make sure I clear it off for now, okay. So just go ahead and clear that. Any data that was there, I just want to start completely from scratch. I should have done that before we started today, but anyway. Okay. So now there's completely no data, okay. And you'll notice that there is this button here called Getting Started. And it says, this big green button says JumpStart Demo Project. Okay. Now, mind you, this project is not published anywhere. This is all 100% running within Stacks. All you need to have is the Stacks installed and this project file open. Okay. Let's go ahead and click on this button. And what this will do is this actually takes us to our first peek into the Total CMS admin area. And you'll notice this very top button here. We're in the project setup pane. And there is a button here called JumpStart Demo Data. So what I've done is I've pre-baked in all the demo data within the product itself. Okay. Now all we have to do is install it. And how we install it is we just click on this button and we wait. You also see something else I worked on. There are various action buttons throughout the admin dashboard, and I just made them a little bit better to see the progress of things. So as you'll notice, the button's kind of moving. If your mouse is over the button, you get this progress indicator, right? Depending on your browser, it will look different. Okay, but so this will take anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes, about a minute to it's actually generating all the data, a lot of data that we'll see. Okay. Yeah. And what's kind of cool is now we have all of our data. So we'll come back to this dashboard and I'll give you a little tour later on, but let's start looking at the content now. Okay. So now I'm going to go to our content, and looking at this content directly on the web page isn't too helpful, but I kind of want to show you that the content is there. We have some style text here. We have dates, right? Remember that the date here used to be today. Now it's 5 days ago. We have emails. We have a color background here. This toggle is on. We have an image. We have an SVG. And we have a gallery. Okay. So all that data was generated just by clicking that button. So let's go to edit mode. And in this project file, we'll kind of go through it to teach you a little bit about how Total CMS works. Okay. So obviously Total CMS saves a bunch of data, and it's nice to kind of start with some demo data so that we don't need to learn all of that yet. Okay. We only need to learn how to present our data. Okay. Now, one thing that's important, if you are a Total CMS 1 user, let me just take a quick pause to let you guys know. If you're a Total CMS 1 user, remember how in Total CMS 1 you had to create an entire admin area and you had to save all your data yourself and you had to do all that, right? Well, you don't have to do any of that anymore. Okay, there's a new dedicated admin area. You can still build your own admin area, which we'll get to in a little bit later today. But yeah, I think for all intents and purposes, 99% of the time, most people, or maybe 90%, okay, most people are just going to want to use and be fine with the default pre-built admin area, which you got a glimpse of a few minutes ago. Okay, but let's go through and learn how to access our content. Okay, the content that's saved in the CMS. So with text content here, I should say, actually, let's look at all the stacks that we have. Okay, and some people that have been using the beta will notice a slight difference here. You'll notice prior to this, all the icons look the same. Okay, and while I do plan on designing custom icons for every stack, what I wanted to do now is at least color code them a little bit so we can kind of differentiate. So here we have these kind of bronze or orange stacks. They're kind of like the a utility stack, okay, per se. The gray, the kind of the blue-gray icons, these are going to be all of your content. So these are going to be the stacks that you use to show content on your web page. And then these brown ones, you'll use these data loaders on your page too. We'll use a couple of these today, but yeah, these are going to be, you know, kind of utility stacks. And then the purple ones, those are going to be your admin stacks. Okay. Now, authentication, most of the time you're only going to use the authentication stacks on admin pages, but yeah, I decided to kind of make them not purple. Okay, but again, eventually all these stacks will get their own icon, just like I kind of do for Foundation and for the current Total CMS and the starter pack and all that stuff, right? I like having every stack has its own icon. So, but for now, at least they're color coded, so it makes it a little bit easier to find potentially what you want. I also organize them. Content and layout helpers are now at the top, okay? Whereas before they were kind of intermixed in things. So there's just a little bit better organization now with the stacks. Okay. So let's look at the content. So text content. How do we get a piece of text, okay, from the CMS and display it on our web page? There are essentially two different ways in general to access data from Total CMS. First is with stacks. Okay, so for example, this is a text stack, which is right here. You can add that to the page. Okay, and inside that text stack, you'll see that what I've done is I've given it, I'm giving it an object ID. So every bit of content has an ID. And I know that this bit of text has an ID of demo header. And then you can say how do you want to output that text, as an H4 or a paragraph, or what you want to output that as. Okay. There's a few other things which we're going to gloss over for right now. Okay. But that's essentially the basics of at least of the text stack. Everything will have an object ID. Okay. And then for the text stack, you can say what tag you want that to be. Okay, in this case, I wanted this to be an H4, and it's going to take that demo, that content that I saved in the demo header, and output it right there inside of an H4 tag. Pretty simple, right? Now, you'll notice on the bottom of this, and it's actually turned on by default, okay, is there is this little syntax here that looks kind of funky. Looks a little bit like code, okay? These are Total CMS macros. Okay, and when you build out this text stack, it shows you if I were to use a macro on the page, this is the macro that I would use to build out or to output this content. Okay, now actually there is one bit of setting that I skipped over. There's a default content here, so that if you remember earlier, you might have noticed that this said default header instead of it being blank. Okay. That is because I supplied a default value. So if there isn't a value in the system, output a default value. Okay. And if you don't have a default value, it just outputs nothing. That's it. Okay. So, and down here, we'll see that now here I updated the syntax a little bit to have this default option, because I wanted to show that kind of the ability to do that, right? But essentially here, if I do that, if I just, the same thing as this macro right here, all I do is I can paste that within any of my stacks. Okay, so this is a Foundation 6 header stack that I set it to be an H4. And what's cool is that I can use all of the other really awesome Foundation 6 features and then integrate my CMS content inside of it. So now this and this are effectively the same exact content. Okay, it's just your preference on how you want to do it. If you're familiar with Foundation 6 or another framework, or you love some other stacks, you can go and integrate Total CMS content inside of those using these macros. So there we go. Now you'll notice that I did have that little syntax. So here I just modified this a little bit, and we're not going to dive too much into this syntax today. But this little syntax here allows me to apply a default value, right? So if I go ahead and say default, okay, and then I can just apply whatever I want, okay? There we go. So now it's going to get CMS text and then the demo header, so that content. And if that is empty or doesn't exist, then it will output the default. Okay, so just a nice thing. You don't have to supply. Obviously, if you're managing your site, you know if content is there or not. So you might not have to put in the default value. Okay, but if you're working with clients and you want to kind of ensure that stuff displays properly, then yeah, if your client accidentally or removes something from the thing, you can kind of have a fallback. Okay. And this just talks about the flexibility of macros here, where it's super flexible. I also have this stack right. This stack here is called Macro Builder. This Macro Builder stack, it's only something to use inside edit mode. Okay, and it helps you build out macros. Right. So it allows you to, let's say I want to get a date, right? And I want to format that date, or I want to output a color, or I want to look at alt text from an image, or I want to get an SVG, right? You'll notice, so you can kind of build out, use these settings to build out the macro. And then at that point, you can then see the syntax and then type that. It would be really awesome if I had like some sort of copy button. Maybe eventually we'll have something like that. Okay. But for right now, at least it builds out this macro for you. Again, this stack, it only is something in edit mode. It outputs zero code to your web page. So you can kind of have it there as a helper or a learning tool to help you, build out these macros. Okay. So here's just a few more examples. You can also, now up here, I had my, content as the entire header. Okay. But down here, I mixed in my macro within existing content. So here I'm doing hello, and then it's going to output a name. And then down here, I have a button where I'm actually outputting the price. Okay. So I'm integrating my CMS content inside of an existing element, in this case, a button. So if you see in here in the button label, wherever I want that price, I put in the macro, and it will pull that data from the CMS and inject it right where that macro is. All right, let's preview this page so we can kind of see what I'm talking about. So here, this was the text content page. So obviously this header, these two, as I said earlier, they are exactly the same, because this one was done with a stack. This one was done using the macro inside of a header stack. Okay. They look exactly the same. It's because in all intents and purposes, they are. Now, if we look down here in this macro flexibility, we'll see that I have hello and then a name. So this name was added into the CMS, and I can log into the CMS and change that. Or I can log in and change this button, right? So let's do that, right? Let's go ahead and let's go into the dashboard. So if you're inside the demo project, there's the very last one here, gives you access to the admin dashboard. This is our pre-built admin area for Total CMS. And let's just go into our collections, and let's go into text, okay? And inside text, here I have demo name. That's the name that I want, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we're just going to do Joe work. Actually, you know what? We're going to say hi to Danny. Danny Grizzle. Okay. So I'm now going to save this content. Okay. So now I've changed my name to Danny Grizzle. We're going to go back to the content here. Okay. And voila. The page has now been updated to say hello, Danny Grizzle. Right. So that's how the CMS works. All I did, if we look at that, is I just put in CMS text because we want to get something from the text collection. And I give it the ID. If you saw inside there, it was the ID of that bit of text was demo name. Now, whatever I type into demo name will automatically get added onto my web page. Same thing with button. I won't take the time to do that with the button because it's effectively the same. Believe me, if I go in and look for demo price inside the number collection, guess what we're going to get? Get the number. Okay. And so there we go. All right. Let's move on. A lot of this, now that we've covered a lot of like the basics, either we access stuff from a stack or with macros. I personally like using macros, but sometimes using a stack is convenient. Okay. So let's look at some of this. Styled text. Now, styled text is effectively styled text, right? It's not plain text. It allows you to add bold and link and lists and headers, and you can do all kinds of stuff, okay? And today, we're not going to dive into all the various things. Style text is very powerful, but yeah, I just want to show you how you can display it. It's the same exact way as we do text, right? It's just cms.styled text and then your ID, okay? And so here I have a style text stack. Just as you might assume, we have a style text stack. Guess what that's for? That's for accessing style text content. Okay. And then here is the macro for demo style text. Okay. And if we look at that, here we go. As you see, this and this, it's because I'm displaying it two different ways. They're the same exact thing on the page. Again, doesn't matter if you use the stack or the macros, it will output the same thing. Okay. So there we go. Okay. So that's style text. We'll see what the style text engine looks like in a little bit on the admin side. It's just a style text editor. Okay. And it does output HTML, right? So this outputs an actual header tag, a link tag, a bold, right? So that's what's different from style text to plain text. Plain text, you can type in HTML, but you have to actually type it in if you wanted, right? But with style text editor, you get a nice toolbar where you can, build all this stuff you would with a traditional style text editor or a rich text editor there that we're used to. In here, I do have a special call out for using macros inside of Markdown. Okay. Now, as you're probably aware, Markdown is supported in a lot of locations inside stacks. And even the default text stack inside of Foundation 6 and in my starter pack, while it says text, it's for generating text, but it actually is a Markdown editor. Okay. And there are some definite gotchas when using macros inside of a Markdown editor. Okay. And actually, I'm going to fast forward a little bit because literally a half hour before we started today, I added this email demo and I broke the demo. I was pulling my hair out. I was like, what the heck did I do? When I created this, actually I created these little new filters here, which we'll look at it in a minute. Okay. But one of the huge gotchas with Markdown, okay, is if we look right, where's my little tools here? Okay. If we look right here, okay. Before I will even break it. By default, I tend to use double quotes, right? A lot of people do, right? And so I had double quotes in here. Again, it was cms.email because it's pulling in demo email from the email collection. And I wrapped that around double quotes. But I am in a markdown area. Okay, this is a tech stack that is markdown. And if I read my own little warning up here, it says under the hood, markdown converts double quotes into this. Okay, and that will break these macros. Okay, so the solution isn't hard. You just need to use single quotes instead of double quotes. Okay, so if you ever use a double quote, you will see something similar to this up at top. Okay, it might not be the exact error. Okay, but if you ever use a double quote within a macro inside of a markdown, you will get an error. Okay, and your page will break. Okay, if you notice, all of this stuff here is just completely broken now. Like none of my macros are resolving. What the heck? Okay, and so yeah, word of warning for using macros inside markdown. There might be some other gotchas. Okay, like for example, macros do not work well inside of a link, right? So here I tried to create a markdown link, and I for the URL I put in that inside the link. That ain't gonna work well. Okay, markdown doesn't know. Okay, so yeah, just a word of warning for that. If you need something like this, either use something other than markdown or type in the HTML, and then markdown accepts HTML. Okay, so there's a workaround for that. All right, let me go ahead and fix my demo since I broke it. Let me just go ahead and change these double quotes to single quotes again. There we go. All right, so word of warning about macros in markdown. All right, let's start speeding through some of this. Date content. Okay, same thing. We have a date stack. You can also use a bunch of, there's a macro to get a date. Now, if you notice here, this outputs in the date stack, you can provide various formats. Okay, and there's also, this one does pipe date relative. Okay, as you notice that there are a lot of these little modifiers, right? So essentially, if we look at this syntax here, we have a date. So we're getting demo date from the CMS, and then I'm running it through this modifier that is giving it a format, right? And whatever format I type in the stack settings here will output here. There are a lot of what are called filters, okay, in here, and I have them all documented. We'll look at the documentation in a little bit. But all of these filters are documented, or most of them are, okay? For example, in this date relative filter, what that does, let's preview that page so we can kind of see. And I notice, man, I'm already at a half hour. So as you see, relative does, instead of a date, it does 5 days ago, because this date is 5 days ago, okay? For those not in English and need that translated to different languages, working on it. Okay. So anyway, okay. I knew that comment was coming. Email content. So email content, again, this is how you would access that data. One thing that's cool, this mail to little modifier that you can copy and paste that. Okay. It creates a link for you automatically. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Okay. Colors, want to teach you how you can use colors in Total CMS. We're not going to dive into the syntax right now, but here you can go ahead and do all of that. Okay. Toggles are really cool. They allow us to turn on and off data. Okay. So with the toggle stack, which is here, okay, you'll notice that we can have if the toggle is on data, if the toggle is off data. Okay. So if we go into the dashboard here, so right now I believe this toggle is on. Okay, I can go ahead and if we go into the dashboard, oh, I need to be in preview. Let's go into here. We'll go into toggles. We'll go into my demo toggle, and we're going to toggle that off. Okay, let's go back to my content. And if we scroll down, we'll now see this toggle is off, right? Okay. Last two things, images and SVGs. So obviously with images, we have the ability to, there's an image stack. I'd say that probably the most simple way to get an image is using the stack. There are macros, and it's pasted down here. Use the stack, okay? It's just easier. There's so many variables with creating images because Total CMS creates can actually modify images on the fly, right? So like it'll, no matter what size you put in here, it'll actually generate that size image for you automatically. Super cool. And this stack kind of simplifies all that process for you, okay? And then here's an example of using SVGs. I just use that macro inside of an SVG stack, and off we go. Okay, it outputs that SVG. I can then use all the SVG settings to configure that. Now, next up is a gallery. Okay, galleries definitely are complex beasts. So we made a gallery stack. Okay, and all you have to do is provide the ID of your gallery. And there's all kinds of options here, right? As you would have for any gallery. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Right. So there's all kinds of options for galleries. Really nice gallery. One thing I do have to note, if you notice these images, all the images that are on within that demo thing. So if you see an actual picture like this, it's actually downloaded from an online image service called Pixum, okay? But if you ever see, there's a few different types of images that the CMS actually generates on the fly. Like this image didn't exist before, it generated it, okay? So these are just quick ways of creating abstract images really fast, okay? Sometimes generation of these, I won't dive into that too much, but yeah, sometimes pulling down those images can fail because it depends on an external service, right? But all of these images are dynamically generated on the fly, super quick. Okay, so kind of cool. It's really useful for demo data, stuff that you just want to see something there. And there's a lot of options here where you can customize the color and whatnot, and we'll see some of that in a little bit. Okay, so that I see a comment from Andreas in there saying that this isn't for beginners. Sorry, Andreas. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay. I tried to show all the ways where you can access data from the CMS. Okay. As easy as possible. Now let's go into something called feeds. Okay. This isn't to be confused with my feeds stack. This is a Total CMS feed. Think of it very similar to what a blog is. Here's an example of these images where it's kind of varied, a varied color. Okay. But here's the feed. I can go ahead and pre-built for you. I can just search for, I don't know, let's search for app, right? Automatically, filters your feed. Think of this as like a very simple blog. Okay. If you're aware, Total CMS 3 will have 3 different editions. Feed comes in the light edition, whereas blog, which we'll look at next, comes in the standard edition. And then we have Pro, which was custom collections. Okay. So feed is just a very simple blog. You have a few fields, and creating this grid right now with the version shipped is definitely more challenging for a new user. Okay. But now there is a new feed grid stack. Okay. That builds that entire thing for you. Okay. Now that search form actually uses a Foundation 6 form. Eventually I'll have a search field for Total CMS, but for now it just uses the Foundation 6 form. Okay. So let's look at this grid. It's pretty simple to use. All you have to do is put in your collection. So in this case, my collection is feed. And then I have all kinds of stuff. What sort of, what size grid items do I want? You can also do custom sizes. What's the gutter size, the padding, so on and so forth. Okay. We'll get into some of these other features a little bit later. Okay. But that's done. Like you don't need to build out this layout. It's pre-done for you. All you have to do is drop it on the page, preview. And as long as you have data, it will preview the grid. Okay. Now in here, you'll notice if I click on this, it actually, oops, let me click on that. Oh. Sometimes in preview, the clicking to the actual post page, sometimes that doesn't work inside preview. Okay. It will link to this page. And as you see on this page, this has our image, our title, content, and then I kind of have a list at the bottom that shows other feed items at the bottom, right? And so let's have a look at what this page looks like. Okay. There's a lot of stuff we want to go through today. So, and one thing I want to do is eventually this page I want to make simpler to implement as well. Okay. Kind of like the grid where you just drop in the grid and you get something. Okay. I don't have that yet for the post page. Okay. But we will. So right now, you kind of have to build it piecemeal. Okay. Whereas at the top, we have an object loader. So we need to load in the object that we're loading. Okay. From the URL. And then here I use an image stack that, provides all the data for the image. And at this point, we need to access all of the content. Okay. And so we're going to dive into some of this content here later on. But like I said, this syntax, very similar. So I'm loading in this object. This object is a post. I'm assigning it the post variable. And at that point, I can then access the title. I can access the date or the updated. I can access the content, all from these little macros, okay, that are very similar to the macros we saw on the other page. Okay. Now, before I go any further, we're gonna skip out and look at the dashboard to kind of give you an idea of. Whoops, what happened there? There it goes. Give you an idea of what Total CMS is. Okay. So now that we saw kind of the content side and what everything is, you saw some peaks of what this was. Here in the dashboard at the side, we have things called collections. And this primarily what we're going to be looking at today. And we haven't looked at the products collection yet, but this is a custom collection that we're going to look at in a little bit. And what we'll notice is this custom collection has a lot of data. Right? Let's look at some of the stuff we've already looked at, actually. So let's go to blog. Actually, let's go to feed, since that's actually what we just looked at. So here we have a feed, okay? And here's all of our posts. There are 11 of them. And we can go ahead and if we click on any of these, we'll see that we have each one has an ID. We can mark a post as featured. We can do a title, obviously an image. And then this is that style text editor that I was talking about. So this is where we can actually make, content bold or italic or whatnot. And you save. As you see, it's pretty simple. You just basically have a title, an image, and some content. And as with all these other things, such as let's go into like color. Okay. Here we have a demo color. And inside there, we just have an ID and a color. That's it. Guess what? In date, we just have a date, right? Everything has an ID. ID isn't a required field, right? For any object within Total CMS, but here is the date, okay? If we go and we look at email, okay? Again, here I have an email. There we go. It's just an email. So a lot of these are kind of one field collections, okay? Even if I go to image and we look at the demo image, here we go. It's just an image and has a name of demo image. That's the one I used on the homepage. Okay. And you can replace this image just by dragging and dropping an image in there. Pretty simple. Now let's look at blog really quick. We're going to look at blog on the content side in a little bit, but I figure we'll give a sneak peek on what it looks like on the admin side. Okay. Let's make this a little wider. So just like feeds, it's the same thing. It just has a lot more fields, right? So here we can mark something as draft and featured. We have authors. We have a date as well as created and updated dates. We have tags. We have categories. We have an image. We have a summary. We have a content area. We have a media, which is maybe like a YouTube video. We have a gallery. So every single post can have its own gallery. And then we have an extra content area, right? So as you see, this has a lot more fields, which gives us a lot more things that we can do than we can with feed. Okay. So yeah, that's essentially what blog is. Okay. Now, before we talk about custom collections, okay, I should talk about this next button here, which is something called schemas. A schema is essentially a definition of what that object is. Okay, you can also kind of think of it as a form builder. Okay, so if we look at products, okay, when I created what a product is, it has a price field, an ID field, a tags field, an image field, a description field, and a name field. Okay, and that there's some other things we're not going to dive into. Okay, but for all intents and purposes, that's what a product is. A product has all of these fields. And if I were to go into this custom collection, I now have products with all of those fields. So we have a product that has a name, an image, a description, a price, and tags. Okay. So pretty cool. It allows us to create a custom object that allows it, that also can have whatever fields that we deem it needs. Just super powerful. Now, while custom schemas, you are required to have Pro. Okay, so that is, remember I said there are 3 different licenses in Total CMS. There's Lite, Standard, and Pro. Pro will be the version that you want if you need a custom schema. If you have Standard, you'll get access to all of these built-in schemas, and I'll detail that out at the time. Right now, you can't even buy a Lite license. You can only get Standard or Pro. Okay, Standard gets access to all of the built-in schemas. Okay, you will not be able to create your own custom schemas unless you have Pro. Okay, and if you don't have a custom schema, you can't create a custom collection, right? You'll be limited to the default collections as well, which is still very powerful. The last section we're going to dive into today is the docs. I'm not going to go through all the docs, but there is a lot of documentation here. Obviously, it's still in beta form, okay, but there is a lot to be seen here. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff with, as you saw, if you wanted those macros that we were seeing, it's actually a templating language called Twig. Okay, and there is, oh man, something made all of these bold. We'll have to look into that. So yeah, a lot of this documentation, if you want to dive more into that syntax or that language, you can get all kinds of really cool stuff in here. So this is kind of an overview of what Twig is. And then if you want, like I said earlier, I created a bunch of custom filters. If we go into custom filters, this one here is about accessing CMS content. So there's a lot of data here about how to access various data through the CMS. And then here's all documentation on the filters. I think this is a preview thing. I swear this wasn't bold this morning when I looked at it in the browser. So anyway, there we go. Here, I'm just curious. I'm going to preview in the browser. Go to docs. Go there. Oh yeah, interesting. By the way, you can just preview in the browser and everything will work there as well. Okay, I was just trying to keep things simple and use everything inside the preview engine. Okay. Okay, so yeah, have a gander at the docs. Like I said, a lot of the docs are definitely, cover a lot of the more advanced topics that we're not going to dive into today. Okay. Let's look at blog. All right, so let's go to edit mode. Okay, so here we have a blog, and just like we saw with feeds, I have a blog grid. Okay, there is a stack now. I don't think I showed, here's feed grid that we saw earlier. Here's blog grid. All you have to do is add that to the page, and then you just put in the collection ID. By default, that's going to be blog. Okay, but you can have multiple blogs. So if you want to create a new blog that has a different name, you can do that. And then give it just the ID of that collection there. And then you have all the same exact settings that we had with feeds. Okay. Now by default, there is slightly more, like blog has tags, so it displays the tags. It has, summaries and all that stuff, right? So we have the ability to have a little bit more data within the blog grid. This is just the first revision of this, by the way. I'm sure that over time we'll add more fields and maybe some more options to these grid stacks. Okay. Now with blog and with feed also, you can actually do a build custom layout. And if you do that, essentially it becomes a stacks drop zone, and then you can build out whatever you want. Okay. Like I said, we're not going to cover that today. But yeah, if you're happy with the default layouts, don't turn on the build custom layout option. Okay. Okay. The blog post page, similar to feeds. Oops. Gotta wait for preview. Oh, I previewed the page. One thing that's really cool about Total CMS 3 is when you preview a blog page, it will randomly pick a blog and import it. Okay, so you can actually preview data that you have inside the CMS, which is really, really cool. Okay, and earlier when I showed off the data, remember how I said every blog post has a set of fields. Okay. So when I go ahead and use this object loader stack, okay, and if you're curious, this object loader stack is right here. It's called object. So it's under data loaders object. And this object loader, basically because we're loading it, this page is going to be used for all of your blog posts, which is really, really cool. So we're creating a template on what blog post should be loaded, so that when we are, let's go ahead and I'm going to preview this blog. Oops, this page. I'm going to preview this page. Let's preview it in the browser. Sometimes linking and preview didn't work well earlier. It's working earlier today, but I don't know, maybe live streams stuff doesn't work sometimes. So here we have my blog list. Okay. And you'll notice if I hover on and click on any of these, it will take me to my blog post page for that particular blog. Okay. And if I go, let's just go back. And if I click on this one, it loads that blog post, right? And I click back, it will load this blog post. Okay. Or if I click on any of these down here, guess what? It will load that blog post. None of these are separate pages in my project. Okay. They are all configured with this single blog post page. This is super powerful because this allows us to make our website feel that we have thousands of pages possibly. For example, on Weaverspace on my website, I use Total CMS to manage all my products. And that product page, even though I have 200 products, it's only one page in my project, right? Same thing here. For this blog, I create a single blog post page. At the top, we have this object loader. And for this, you want to make sure you have this, you put in the collection, right? So we're loading our blog. And all I say is load from URL. Okay. And you probably want to have this also enabled, the 404 redirect object not found. So that if someone tries to load a blog post that doesn't exist, it just gets sent to the 404 page. Okay. So now that we've taken care of loading in the object that, or the blog post that was requested, how do we access all of the data? So one thing that's really important with Total CMS is that you know your data. You have to know what your data is. And by that, I mean, if we go into the dashboard again, okay, let's look at what a blog is. So I'm going to go into schemas and blog. So this is what a blog is. These are all the names of the fields that I can access for my blog. So I have summary, author, date, title, all of this stuff I can access. So now if we go back to the blog post page, okay, well, let's go to edit mode. Here I just have a Foundation 6 header, and I can input the title there just with post.title, because title is a field in my blog. Here I'm using post.date. Okay. Here I'm using post.content, right? Then I have a gallery stack. Okay. Galleries do have macros as well, but again, that's one of those things where it's probably easier just to use the stack. Okay. Stack gives you a nice visual interface as well. Here, you're going to have to give it the ID of the object, which in this case is going to be the post.id. Okay. So I won't go into all the explanations of some of these settings right now, but you can kind of use this as a template to use to build off from. Okay. Next up, let's go into custom collections. And to be honest, it's very similar to what blog is, although inside of with a custom collection, we can't use, there is no grid for a custom collection. Well, they're like blog grid and feed grid. Those two things know exactly what a feed is. It knows exactly what a blog is. But there is another new stack called, where is it? Here, loop grid. Okay, it's in layout helpers. Now, loop grid is a generic loop that you can use with any collection. And its only drawback is it doesn't know what fields are available, and it doesn't know how you want to lay that out. Okay. So in this grid, I have a products collection, and let's just preview this. Okay. So that when you use the loop grid, you're kind of building a custom list. Okay. It helps you build out the grid. Okay. But you have to actually kind of build the template of your content. So here I just have a nice little grid with an image. When I hover over, we get a product details and a buy now button. Okay. With the price. So this is something that I've done with the loop grid stack. And again, what the loop grid stack is doing for us is it's building out the grid for us. It's also handling the direct, it could handle the direct linking to the object. It's essentially this replaced like 4 stacks before, and it can do it all in one. Okay. So for those of you that are maybe, this is probably, maybe getting outside of the beginner realm. Okay. But you can build your own layout inside of your loop grid. I'm not going to dive into the details and teach you how all this is. But for the existing users, you're probably going to love this. Okay. And obviously here I have a product page that will then also load in that product. So here, just, a pretty simple product page. We have the image, the content, my buy now button. I outputted the tags, and then we have related products down here. Right. So a pretty simple page. And again, this is kind of laid out very similar to the blog, where you would then at the top you would load in your object, and then you would use the macros to integrate, or the Total CMS stacks. Right, instead of using this header, I could use a text stack and output the product name as well. Okay, the rest of the pages here are sort of they're a work in progress. Okay. So we'll have an advanced one. This is how things used to be done. It was all with this loop stack, which is really awesome, but not as simple to use as the grid stacks. Okay. So, the new way is loop grid, feed grid, and blog grid. The harder way, is definitely with these loop stacks. There's loop blog, loop feed, loop gallery, and yeah, there we go. So the loop stacks, again, still, they're not going away. I still think they're highly useful. They allow definitely for some more advanced use cases that grid automates for you. But yeah, eventually I'll have kind of examples on how to use those here. Inside troubleshooting, again, this page is also a work in progress. I started, as you see here, I have a little synopsis here of what happens when you get these errors that we saw earlier. Okay. Something called server checker log analysis. There's an X-ray stack, which is useful for debugging. There's a process macro stack, which can be useful. And then there's going to be also, if you have some really bad caching going on, there is caching going on in Total CMS in the server. There'll be the ability to quickly clear cache. Okay. The admin page, this is still a work in progress. As I said, you can still build custom admin dashboards, but yeah, and you could do all of that with these purple stacks. Okay, so essentially here and it's not even hard, right? So if you wanted to have a blog form, guess what? Boom, drag that out there. You have a blog form. You want an email form? Boom, you have an email form. Okay. You want a depot form, which we didn't even talk about today. There you go. Some of them, actually, some of this edit mode stuff doesn't look right. I'll have to look at some of that, right? If you want a text form, boom, done, right? So really simple to do, but you can build out, again, it is just a bunch of extra work, which you don't have to do if you use the built-in admin area, okay? Okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to look at the chat before I talk about anything else. And let me go ahead and try to answer some questions. Let me go ahead and let's see. Screen glitches, submit, screen glitches are gone. This is, okay, yep. Tom, I hope the European Football Championship's doing well. Okay, Martin, is the dashboard something that we can expect clients to use, or is it just for us as developers? Great question, Martin. And that is really up to you. Okay. So as of right now, okay, once you have access to the dashboard, you have access to the entire dashboard. Let me go ahead and flop back to me really quick. Okay. So that is a great question. And I think it really depends on you, and it depends on your client, and it depends on, in terms of time frame, when I implement access controls. Okay. So in the admin dashboard, once you have access to everything. Okay. So if you're okay with your client accessing everything, then yeah, give them access. Why not? Okay. But, yeah, let's say in the future, you only want them to have access to, let's say, blog. You don't want them to have access to schemas, right? So you want to kind of limit their access. We will have that control in the future. I haven't built those features yet. The settings are there in the admin area, but they don't work yet. Okay. So yeah, it's really up to you. A benefit of having a custom admin area is that, while I think that the dashboard that I created is quite elegant and it's, universal, in terms of design language. If you go a custom route, you can brand it and design it however you want, right? So it really is up to you. If you want to take the extra effort to make it custom, you can. Total CMS has all the authentication engine and the page. You don't need page safe anymore, at least for Total CMS, right? And you can use the login system for Total CMS for your custom admin areas as well, which is nice. Okay, so again, I think what some people are doing, there's two camps. I know, like, for example, Davide and Josh, for a lot of their customers, they are still building a custom admin area, because it could be branded and the workflow can be customized and organized exactly how the client matters or wants. And it gives Davide kind of a more luxury feel as well, right? Because they have this custom admin area. Okay. But obviously, there's going to be stuff that they don't add or they want extra features. And so Davide and Josh can you still use the built-in admin area, right? So anyway, hope that answered your question, Martin. Just joined. How will Alloy import work? So I'm still working on Alloy import. I did ship in the last beta a Total CMS 1 import, which I can give you a sneak peek of in a little bit. Okay. Alloy import will work very similar to how the Total CMS 1 import works. Let me just give you an idea. Okay. So inside utility, now obviously your Alloy content will be on your server. Okay. And if you go to project setup, oh, well, it doesn't show here. Let me show you somewhere else. The tool is a smart tool, and it knows that I don't have Total CMS 1 installed. Let me go to an instance that I know has. Okay. So this is just a local development instance that I have. If I go to project setup here, when Total CMS 3 detects a Total CMS 1 installation, you will see this, okay? And all you have to do is click import data, and it will import all of your data from Total CMS 1 into Total CMS 3. It will not harm or modify your Total CMS 1 data at all, okay? Alloy import is going to be exactly the same. When you publish this to your server, it will detect if you have Alloy, or if it thinks you have Alloy installed. Something will show up inside the project setup, and then you will be able to import your Alloy data into Total CMS 3. And just like with Total CMS 1, it will not modify or erase any of your Alloy data. It will only import it. Okay. So, yeah, that should happen pretty soon, hopefully in the next beta, after I ship this one. In the next beta or two, I will work on the Alloy import. Okay. So, but it will be very simple. Hopefully, right? I do have some data that was provided from me to me by Adam Jackson. So thank you if you're watching, Adam. Thank you very much for that. He's supplied me with his Alloy blog data so that I can analyze it and properly import it into Total CMS 3. Okay. Matthias makes a great point in the chat. That all of this data that we're seeing here, as I said at the very early, this is all inside of Stacks. None of this data lives on your server, okay? And that is a very important point. Once you actually publish this to your server, all the data that you see in preview won't exist, okay? You can still generate dummy data online if you want. There is the ability to do that, okay? But you will have the data is managed separately from your web server and inside preview, okay? That is done on purpose, okay? It is done that way, so that working on a Total CMS site, since all the data is local, it's like so much faster, okay? Plus, a lot of hosting companies now, even with Total CMS 1 instances, a lot of times they'll actually break preview because they actually have like firewall rules now where certain data can't be sent down, and then your preview's broken in Total CMS 1. That actually is a thing right now with some hosting companies, where they've implemented firewall rules because Total CMS, the preview has to query the server to get data, and every time you preview it queries, and I guess hosting companies didn't like that. So Total CMS 3 manages its own preview data. And if you're curious, I did say I was going to show earlier, again, I'm in Stacks 6. If I just go view and show preview folder, okay, that shows the preview folder. This is like basically the exported website for preview, okay? And if you go up, I know there's a lot of these folders look like gibberish, okay? But if you notice here, there's a Stacks folder, okay? And if we just scroll down a little bit, you notice right below the Stacks folder is a Stacks Total CMS folder, okay? And guess what's inside there, okay? There is a data folder created for every project that you have, okay? So this particular project file, if we look at the site settings here, we'll see that the domain here is demo.totalcms.test. And if you look here is the data folder for that, okay? So what I've done, this folder only exists in the current beta that I've shipped, or I haven't shipped yet, okay? What I've done is I've actually added it to my sidebar, so I can always have access to my preview, my Total CMS data that's used in preview. Pretty cool, actually. Okay, definitely not a beginner tip, but that's a cool one to know. Okay, but thanks for the reminder on that one, Matthias. Stacks is a replacement for RapidWeaver. I don't need RapidWeaver. Will CMS 3 work with RapidWeaver? Okay, great questions. Stacks 6 is a replacement for RapidWeaver. So yes, and what's great is all of your existing stacks will all work inside of Stack 6, which is pretty cool. Okay. It is currently in beta. Like I said, I currently have beta 48, and I did promise to share that with you guys. So if you guys are still on and still watching, watch out for a link for that. Okay. In a little bit, I'll get that. Will Total CMS 3 work inside RapidWeaver? Yes, with some caveats. Okay. The shipped Total CMS 3 requires PHP 8.2. Okay. Possibly in the future it will do 8.3. Okay. But right now it requires 8.2. And currently RapidWeaver 8 does not support PHP 8.2. It has PHP 7.4. So, but RapidWeaver Classic or RapidWeaver 9 or whatever they're calling it this week, that does support PHP 8.2. Okay. There are some workarounds that, potentially to get it working in RapidWeaver 8, but for all intents and purposes, the RapidWeaver 9 with Stacks 5, Total CMS 3 will work. Stack 6, 1,000% will work and will be I think the solution going forward into the future. So that's why this build and this project file are kind of a big day, right? Because it kind of is a new beginning. So I still feel, for production websites, we're still not quite there with Stack 6. There's still some gotchas and there's still some features that need to be implemented. But we're getting there. Okay. And for right now, the Total CMS 3 stacks will work inside RapidWeaver if you have Stacks 5. Okay. And yeah, if you have RapidWeaver 8, you might need to just export it locally. And then use something like MAMP or ServeBay or whatever locally to preview your site. Actually kind of really like that workflow now. So I still might even use that with Stacks. I'm not sure, but more on that later on. So hopefully that answers your questions on that work on Sheets. So thank you very much. Clients like Total CMS 1 because it was easier than WordPress. I agree 100%, Martin. So yeah, that's why we still have both options, right? So yeah, custom admin interface. If you still want to do the time to build it, you can still do that. Okay. I think that's a really great feature of Total CMS, actually, is the custom admin areas where you can really curtail things. But with that said, if you have feedback on the pre-built admin area, let me know. I do think it's still better than WordPress. But obviously, let me know if you're like, hey, I didn't quite like this, or maybe we can use the usability features or whatever, right? Let me know. I'm always open to making that better. Okay. But with that said, custom admin areas are still possible and they always will be. For future access control, would you consider implementing blog controls so that a user can access only the blog post they created? Possibly, Ben. Possibly. We'll think about that. Okay. There we go. Okay. With that said, let me go ahead and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this. Don't tattle on me, anybody. Okay. Please don't tattle on me. Let me go ahead and get the latest beta URL for you guys. Shoot, my link stopped working. Hold up. Where is it? Let's see if this link works. All right. There we go, guys. I put it in the chat. That should get you the latest beta version. And like I said, for Total CMS, I didn't find any bugs during this live stream, which is pretty fun. I would love, if there was anyone here that still had like the deer in the headlights sort of feeling, let me know. I'd love to, post on the community. I love to work on, obviously, I need to work on my delivery of Total CMS and how I deliver it and teach it, right? So I am always open to constructive feedback on how I can make not only the product better, but how I can teach better. So I know it is very difficult to take knowledge for granted, right? Or it's easy. I'm sorry. It's easy to take knowledge for granted, and it's difficult to forget what you know and pretend like you don't know, right? Because I know it. I know that's the mentality that a really good teacher has, and I try to do that, but sometimes it is really difficult to think of all the situations where I take my knowledge for granted. So please let me know if what I explained today wasn't good enough, wasn't simple enough, because I do want to improve my training of Total CMS so that we can get as many new people on it as possible, because I really do feel like it's a really good product. Okay. And I really do feel that, a novice to maybe a slightly above novice user, which I think is a lot of us here, can really leverage to build some really powerful things. And so please don't be scared. Reply to my email, let me know in private, or post on the community. If you still struggle with anything that I showed today, if you don't see the light, and if you feel that I could improve on, on anything, either in the product or in my teaching. So please do that. I would greatly appreciate that. Okay. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. We will see you guys tomorrow. Okay. Hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow, at the Hangout. We have it every Friday. It's at 30 minutes from now, but tomorrow. Okay. It's on Zoom. Links will be posted on the community. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll chit chat more about this project. I should have this beta shipped by then as well. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. I see the links working for everyone. So maybe start a static site and then go through how to make it maintainable by Total CMS 3. Martin, I did that. Okay. So there is a 4-hour tutorial. It is 4 hours. Okay. I know that sounds like a long time. Okay. But if you go to the dashboard, okay, this here is a link to a playlist. Okay. And this one, this guy right here. Okay. Number 5 on the list. Okay. This is a Total CMS 3 playlist on my YouTube channel. Okay. There is a build a website from scratch with Foundation 6 and Total CMS 3. Okay. The reason it's 4 hours is I build the entire I design a website and build it completely from scratch. It is actually, I'm sharing my screen right. Yeah. Okay. It is this website. Let me log in. All right. I build this website. Okay. Live. I designed it. I built it. The first probably 2 hours is designing the site. I design it statically. and then I integrate Total CMS into it. Okay. So check that out, Martin. I know, long time, but if you if you're confident with all your Foundation 6 stuff, go ahead and fast forward through all of that in the video, and then start, I assume, somewhere in the middle, around 2 hours or so, where I start integrating Total CMS into it. Oh, Stacks Pro. Oh, okay, sorry. Work on Sheets. Yes, Matthias answered your question. The Pro was removed from the name. It's now just called Stacks 6. Okay, he decided just to call it Stacks. So it's just called Stacks version 6. The app is called Stacks. It's the same product. He decided to remove the word Pro from the name, just to kind of give it more a bigger audience. Okay, so it's just called Stacks. Stacks app. I call it Stacks 6 just because it is version 6 of Stacks. Okay, so excellent. Cool. Excellent, everybody. See you at the community. Hang out tomorrow. Awesome stuff going on. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for being a part of the Weaverspace community. I really appreciate it. And I love helping you build amazing stuff. It makes me feel good. So please also share all your amazing stuff that you build on the community. Because, yeah, makes you look good, makes me feel good. Take care, everyone.